You're listening to the Quint's podcast.
In big news in India's vaccination drive, the Subject Expert Committee (SEC) recommended to the Drug Controller General of India to grant emergency use authorization for Bharat Biotech's Covaxin for children as young as 2 years. On 12th October, the expert panel in a statement said that, quote-unquote, after detailed deliberation, the committee recommended for grant of market authorization of the vaccine for the age group of 2 to 17 years for restricted use in an emergency. This announcement makes Covaxin the second vaccine after Zydus Cadila's ZyCoV-D DNA-based vaccine to be approved for vaccinating those under the age of 18 and the first vaccine in the world to be approved for children below the age of 12. Though the DCGI has not given the formal nod yet, the lack of publicly available data regarding the clinical trials and the fact that Covaxin has still not been approved by the World Health Organization has raised some concerns with health experts on how effective the vaccine will be on children. What also does not help Bharat Biotech's case is its previous lack of transparency about the conduct of Covaxin clinical trials in adults and how it reported adverse side effects. And this brings up the pertinent question on every parent's mind. How safe is Covaxin for children? How many doses should be administered? And do children already affected with COVID need the vaccine? To help us answer these questions, for today's episode, we spoke with Dr. Gagandeep Kang, a renowned virologist with CMC Vellore and a member of the COVID-19 World Group, the National Technical Advisory Group on Immunisation. You're tuned in to The Big Story, the podcast where we dissect the headline-making news for you, and I'm your host, Himmat. So what all do we know about Bharat Biotech's clinical trial of Covaxin on children below 18 years of age? According to Bharat Biotech, nearly 1,000 subjects were in the clinical trial, which has completed all three phases. The same vaccine which has been used on adults was used on children. However, data on these trials have not been made public yet. Now, based on efficacy data of Covaxin on adults provided by Bharat Biotech, the vaccine is 77.8% effective in protecting against COVID-19 based on trials conducted on nearly 26,000 people across India. And the SEC in their statement noted that children showed similar efficacy rates as adults. However, it is difficult to comment on the efficacy data points, given the absence of any publicly available data on trial results and Bharat Biotech's lack of transparency with clinical trials in the past. For example, in the case of People's Hospital in Bhopal, where an investigation by health journalist Priyanka Pulla in February this year uncovered numerous ethical breaches by the hospital in conducting phase 3 trials. We spoke to Priyanka Pulla in an earlier episode regarding her investigation, and if you have missed that episode, you can find a link to it in our show notes. But coming back to the main issue, is Covaxin safe for children? What does the data that is publicly available on the trials on children indicate so far? According to Dr. Gagandeep Kang, there is substantial safety and efficacy data available on Covaxin based on the adult vaccine drives through which an assessment can be made. However, the lack of publicly available effectiveness data on children is concerning. She expands on how clinical trials on children are conducted.
So the data that goes from a company to the subject expert committee is privileged information. It's up to the company whether they want to release that data or not. The information that is publicly available on that trial is the information that is available in the Clinical Trials Registry of India. And in that, which has to be submitted before the company actually starts testing, is the idea that the trial will be done as most trials that go into children are done in an age descending fashion. So 3 age groups in which 175 children will be recruited into each age group, making a total of 525 children. So there's no control arm in this group, and the idea here is to evaluate samples from those children before they get the vaccine, and then after 1 and 2 doses of the vaccine given 28 days apart. What we've been told in the media, at least, is that the data from the children is no different from the adults, which means that the immune responses that were seen in children is similar to that in adults. So what we've got is immunogenicity data on 525 children, presumably. And we also have data on 25,000 people that participated in the clinical trial, half of whom got the vaccine. And we have safety data from tens of millions of people that have received Covaxin in the program. So there's a substantial safety database. There is some efficacy data. No real effectiveness data that I am aware of, though I'm told it is on the way. So we know that the vaccine works. We know that the vaccine is safe. We now have confirmation in a group of children that the vaccine is producing the same immune response as in adults. That, I think, is sufficient data for the subject expert committee to consider approval for the vaccine under restricted use or emergency authorization or whatever terminology is in use today.
Another important issue when it comes to vaccinating those under the age of 18 is the dosage of the vaccine. The dosage concern, according to a New York Times report, first started when health officials started reporting rare cases of myocarditis, which is an inflammation of the heart. This, according to the NYT report, is more common in adolescents and young adults after the first dose of the COVID vaccine. And according to a Centers for Disease Control and Prevention report, for every million vaccinated boys between 12 to 17 years, a maximum of 70 cases of myocarditis was reported. And though the cases are rare, according to a BBC report, it has led to several countries like Norway, Hong Kong, the UK, Denmark, and France to vaccinate those aged between 12 to 18 with only one dose of Pfizer. Now, from what we know about the Covaxin clinical trial on kids, both doses of Covaxin was administered to the children with a gap of 28 days. It is also important to note that the cases of myocarditis was reported in mRNA vaccines like Pfizer, whereas Covaxin is an inactivated COVID vaccine. So, is giving children 2 doses of Covaxin an issue? According to Dr. Kang, since Covaxin is an unactivated vaccine, it is not a problem if the goal is to maximize the immune response with 2 doses.
Yeah, so that is the part where Covaxin differs a bit from the other vaccines, because for the other vaccines, there has been a reduction in dosage given to children. And it makes sense because for many vaccines, you see a higher reactogenicity in children because they have a lower body mass. With Covaxin, we're talking about a vaccine that wasn't very reactogenic in adults. We have a large safety database. And the immune response perhaps is not as good as some of the other vaccines. So if the goal is to maximize the immune response in children, it's not really a problem to give children the same dose of an inactivated vaccine as you give to adults.
Now that we have cleared the question of doses, the next question is regarding when will the vaccination start and who will get it first. So far, no official date regarding when the vaccination for children will begin has been announced. Citing a senior government official, a News 18 report states that vaccination for children may start rolling out by mid-November. Dr. Kang points out that approval of Covaxin does not mean that we should use the vaccine in the same way we have used it on adults. She says that India needs to ensure a high coverage of the vulnerable population being inoculated first before starting vaccinating others.
The fact that a vaccine is approved does not necessarily mean that we will use the vaccine in the same way that we are using vaccine in adults. We have not vaccinated all adults in our country first. So the fact that the same vaccine is licensed for use in children doesn't mean immediately you start vaccinating 2-year-olds, right? We should be aiming at making sure we have really high coverage of the vulnerable populations and then think about vaccinating others.
She adds that children with comorbidities should be first in line to be vaccinated when the drive begins.
When it comes to children, I absolutely think that children with comorbidities, we should be thinking about vaccinating them. But the question is, which is the best vaccine for children in India? Right now, the only vaccines that we have Covaxin and ZyCoV-D, which are for 12 and above, and then for 2 and above, you have Covaxin, presumably when it's approved, right? So should we vaccinate children with comorbidities? I think right now, even though the circulating virus is relatively low, using an inactivated vaccine in children with comorbidities should be generally safe. We may not be able to achieve a very high immune response, but it may give some protection. So on balance, I think it's all right. I also think it should be done with very close monitoring to measure the immune response in children and try and figure out if in this special group, the vaccine is really doing what we want for it to do.
There has also been discussion among health experts on the need for children who have already been infected with COVID-19 to be vaccinated. In an earlier episode of the Big Story podcast, epidemiologist and health systems expert Dr. Chandrakant Laharia pointed out that vaccinating children is also not a prerequisite for reopening schools, given that national sero surveys, which identify the rate of spread of infection in a population, show that 60% of Indian children have been found with antibodies during the lockdown. A link to that episode is in our show notes. Dr. Kang also believes that the issue regarding vaccinating healthy children is a concern given the effectiveness of the vaccine and that majority of the very rare cases of severe COVID or death have been with children who had comorbidities. She also says that the first version of the vaccine may not be the best case for giving children lasting protection from COVID.
Do we want to vaccinate healthy children? That I'm still really doubtful about because I'm not sure yet that healthy children really need the vaccine. I'm also, we've got 60% coverage of infection in children who have not received vaccine at all. Do we really want to vaccinate kids that may already have had exposure to natural infection? I don't know what the risk of disease is because there's no data in India that tells us how badly healthy children do when they get infected. Anecdotal data from my hospital, from pediatricians that I speak to, is that the severe disease and the deaths that they have seen in children have always been in children with comorbidities. It's very, very, very rarely that a healthy child develops an infection, it becomes really severe. So I'm still doubtful, even if there's lots and lots of vaccine available and all adults are covered, I'd still have my doubts about the benefits of vaccinating healthy children.
If and when the DGCI has approved the vaccine, the National Technical Advisory Group on Immunisation will study the report submitted by Bharat Biotech. As of 13th October, India has vaccinated over 96.4 crore people, out of which 27.5 crore are double jabbed. The inclusion of children in the vaccine drive will bring more than 25 crore people in the vaccinated population pool. If you like listening to this episode, please subscribe to The Big Story for episodic updates. We're available on Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, JioSaavn, and most of the other popular podcast streaming platforms. For other podcasts, please log on to the Quint website, and for any feedback, please shoot an email to podcast@thequint.com.
Thanks for listening. Log on to the Quint's website and check out our other podcasts.